Toronto, Canada's Camelot, some would say, with its fairy tale kingdom quality, selling fun, cleanliness, security, boasting glamour, entertainment, sophistication. There are jobs, money, and people. Tens of thousands of Canadians and immigrants have been attracted to the city in recent years because it's prosperous and easy to live in. And therein lies the problem. Toronto is in danger of becoming a victim of its own success. Almost 4 million people live in what's called the Greater Metro Region. 4 million, jamming the roadways and highways. Expensive city housing drives people further out to distant communities, but daily they return to the city to work, choking the system, questioning this good life. There's the feeling, it's a fear really, that Toronto is turning Camelot, the People's Kingdom, into an exclusive club. Certainly the good life here has become very expensive. Housing prices are the best example. They've gone up 60% in the last 2 years. Not only does Toronto have the hottest real estate market in the country, there are days when it's the hottest market in the world. That means that if you don't already own a house in the city or have access to lots of cash, then living in town near work is a futile dream. A case in point, a residential neighborhood, minutes from shopping, the subway, the business district. A semi-detached house, 4 bedrooms, 2 baths, no driveway. It sold for a steep but affordable $125,000 in 1984. Today, it goes for $430,000.
Won't you sit down?
Bob and Wendy Walker need a house. Bob is in charge of sports promotion for Labatt's, and the company recently transferred him to Toronto from Calgary. The Walkers wanted a 3 or 4 bedroom home in a neighborhood where they could comfortably raise their family. Bob's employers had some good news. They would ease the way into the Toronto real estate market by helping with the mortgage payments. But the relocation specialists had some bad news. Even with a mortgage subsidy, the Walkers couldn't afford to live in Toronto.
I kind of almost worked my way out. I actually, on one Sunday, I rented a car and put on 300 kilometers, driving around to the various areas to try and get a feel for them. And then just looking at the prices, I mean, that dictated a lot of the general area that we wound up in.
The Walkers' new home cost twice as much as their comparable Calgary place. And look where it is. Not 30 kilometers from work, not 40, but 50. The Walkers will live in Burlington.
Let's take a look at real estate.
One way to get the money to buy a house is to start by selling somebody else's. The hottest course in town these days is real estate.
Right now you can take a 5-week licensing programs and pretty well dictate the careers and investment and holdings of people.
Toronto has the largest real estate board in the world, the entire world. 20,000 people licensed to sell property. And these students want to join the ranks. They lined up to apply, waited 3 months for a seat, paid $850 for the 5-week course. Crazy? Real estate salesman and lecturer Ozzie Lagoso doesn't think so.
I honestly see the current state of affairs, although it's a crisis situation, as normality. The crisis has become normal to us in real estate.
40 years ago, anyone who wanted could afford to live in Cabbagetown. But this central neighborhood wasn't trendy then. It was too run down. 20 years ago, city planners helped spruce up the area. Middle-class Torontonians moved in, attracted by city living and an easy commute to work. Today, even a small house costs $300,000, and there aren't many around at that price. Joe Barrage was one of the city planners who saved Cabbagetown. He says the neighborhood spirit of the city has been preserved, but now Toronto faces another battle.
I think the problems essentially are the problems of becoming a two-class city, which is essentially what's happened to most of the other major cities in the world. The problem is of having a two-class educational system, a two-class health system, a two-class housing system, which enables the wealthy to succeed and have all the benefits of urban life, but shuts out the poor.
The dark side of Camelot. Toronto is also capital of Canada's homeless. A good estimate says 50,000 people try to survive here without an adequate or often permanent roof over their head. Public housing hasn't kept up with demand, and the old complexes, once held up as models of mixed urban development, are now decaying tenement-like blocks. Land is so precious that rooming houses have become an endangered species. People seize every opportunity to tear down a building to put up luxury housing. More than 13,000 rooming house units have disappeared in the last 10 years. Sure, the rooming houses are an eyesore. They smell, they bring down neighboring property values. But for Lisa McEachern and her daughter Stephanie, it's home. One room crowded with bed, fridge, cradle, wardrobe. Lisa and her daughter can just afford this. The alternative is the street.
Right now I have a place it's not so bad. I have a place, I have a roof over my head. A place for my daughter to go to sleep, right? If there weren't rooming houses, there'd be a lot more people on the streets, for sure. Right now, I know over half a dozen people that are sleeping in the parks here. And not only sleeping in parks, sleeping in doorways and on front lawns, in backyards.
For many in Toronto who have homes and jobs, this is the problem that's bothering them. Developers with a seemingly insatiable appetite, given free rein by the city to chew up every inch of vacant land and spit out skyscrapers, which bring thousands more new workers downtown. This is the skyline today. This is what it's going to look like when the latest batch of approved projects are completed. Toronto has the 5th largest inventory of downtown office space on the continent, and it's almost all rented, thanks to people who work from portable offices, like Mike Cowie.
Mike Cowie.
10 years from now, there'll be 21% more office space for people like Cowie to hustle.
Oh, the return on equity on that particular deal is about 11%, which is quite good, considering cap rates are around 7% right now. It's not a bad buy.
Even the car phone companies are having trouble keeping up with the demand generated by all this business.
Probably made me about 6 figures of income. Car phones really helped me a lot because in Toronto the traffic is just getting awful.
Cowie has seen boom and bust before, but while economists worry about a recession, he's still riding the wave.
I worked in Calgary for a couple of years, and this city very much reminds me of Calgary during that boom because there was just no property, no space, prices were going sky high. And it can always correct, it's just a question of when.
But the life in the fast lane that Mike Cowie relishes isn't for everyone. Toronto-based firms are now finding that employees and new recruits living elsewhere are not always anxious to move to this metropolis. Sun Life Insurance, which moved its head office here from Montreal 10 years ago, has this problem. Wendy Yule is the personnel planning officer.
We do recruit on campuses right across the country, and one of the things that we found this year, and I think this year probably for the first time, is we found some great people in other parts of the country. We wanted them to come here. We offered them a job, and they were quite happy with the salary and the job, but just figured they really couldn't afford to live in Toronto, and so they turned us down.
Ever in search of talent, Sun Life has come up with a novel incentive plan for recruitment.
If one of our existing employees knows someone who might be interested in a job at Sun Life, then they can refer that person. If we end up hiring them, then the employee would get a cash bonus.
So, if the people don't want to come to the company, why not move the company to where the people can afford to live? Dave Clark is Sun Life's personnel director.
We want to be part of the financial community. The financial community tends to be located within the downtown core. That's the industry we work in. That's a lot of the clientele we deal with. The major consulting firms we deal with, a lot of our major clients are all located here. It makes more sense for us to locate our business here.
So the company pays a price. To get Clark here from Montreal, Sun Life guaranteed the sale price of his old house, covered moving costs, subsidized his mortgage, in all put out about $40,000 to move one employee. And like so many promoted to Toronto, Clark has had to adjust to the commuter shuffle. He spends over an hour each way getting to and from his home in faraway Burlington.
But the end result is that financially I'm only a little worse off than I would be, but I'm now 51 kilometers from my workplace instead of whatever I was in Montreal, about maybe 8 kilometers, 9 kilometers.
We have a stuck vehicle blocking the left-hand lane right by that overpass.
As long as companies demand more space and office towers downtown, as long as housing prices and supply keep driving people further and further away, this is what life in Toronto will be like. Traffic on the Metro road system has more than doubled in the last 20 years. The trip from point A to B that took an easy 20 minutes in 1968 now takes nearly an hour. More than 2 million cars choke the roads daily, trying to move people in and out of the city. In 10 years, planners say there will be 3 million cars competing for a space on these freeway parking lots. Some people have found a novel way to beat the jams. Shortly after 7, Peggy McCallum leaves her city apartment, slips down Main Streets before the crowd arrives, hits the expressway heading west into the suburbs. Clear sailing going her way. Peggy, you see, is a counter-commuter.
The city's alive, an invigorating place to live, and I enjoy living there. Well, when I first came to Canada, I moved to Burlington and lived in Burlington, and I found I was spending 2 or 3 times a week, plus weekends, commuting to the city for the things I was interested in doing. And therefore, I decided to move to downtown Toronto, and I picked a central location.
But even this solution is temporary. Transportation experts project that very soon, more people will be following Peggy, and the roads out of the city will be just as jammed as the roads in. Two-way rush hours all day long. Very soon, these remaining parking lots will be skyscrapers, and hundreds of thousands of people will be rubbing shoulders and cars rubbing bumpers, all trying to get about. There are no serious plans to stop Toronto's growth or change the way the city works. The day may soon come when Torontonians will tell themselves that they lost their kingdom because they weren't able to manage its success. For the Journal, I'm Susan Reisler in Toronto.